Section 5. How to make the shoulder straps and the back outer panel. So first of all, you will need to make the shoulder straps. With the shoulder strap piece, see the steps on how to fold and press to get the creases we need for the next few steps. Taking one of the shoulder strap pieces which has the creases on and one shoulder strap pad, whether it is foam or fleece. If you're using fleece, place the pad about 1/8 of an inch away from the centre crease and in the centre of that section and on the wrong side of the shoulder strap piece, making sure you have a gap on the two short ends. Fuse this into place using the manufacturer's instructions of the fusible fleece. Now if you like me using foam, use Wonder tape or quilter's tape, run some along the foam and peel the backing tape and stick the pad into place, making sure it's in the centre that you have a gap on both of the short ends and it is 1/8 of an inch away from the two creases. Fold the two long edges into the centre of the wrong side. Now flip the strap over, then bring the two long edges together so the strap is right sides together. Clip the one short end, leave the other end unclipped. Now take this to your sewing machine and sew across the short end using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Remember to reverse your stitches at the start and at the end of your sewn line. Now we need to trim back this seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch. Now turn the shoulder strap right sides facing out, poking out that corner so it's nice and neat. Pop clips down the edge that is still open and match up the folded edges. Taking it to your machine, top stitch 1/8 of an inch down the two long edges and across the bottom. You don't really need to sew the top raw edge. We will deal with that at a later stage. Now you have sewn around the two edges and the bottom edge, pop this to one side for a little while. Take one adjustable buckle and a piece of webbing. The measurement for the webbing is in the pattern instructions. Feed the one short end through the top second bar. There will be a long piece of webbing at the top and a shorter amount coming through out the bottom. Fold the top excess 1/2 an inch underneath to meet the raw edge. Using Wonder or quilter's tape, bring the bottom half of the webbing up to the back and stick that into place. You should have a folded edge at top and the buckle now showing at the bottom as you've folded over the bottom piece of the webbing. So now taking that padded shoulder strap from the neat bottom edge, that's the shorter edge that has a nice finish edge, measure up the amount of inches that is stated within step 10 within this section in the pattern. Place the tape onto the webbing of that buckle you've just did and stick the webbing into place at that measurement. Now take the strap and top stitch the webbing into place, sew a square approximately 1 inch and then add a cross in the centre. This will add strength. Now repeat all this section for the other shoulder strap. Moving on to the next part of this section. Taking the leftover webbing, cut it in half in 2 equal pieces. They should measure approximately 19 inches each piece. Now you will have 2 strap connector pieces which are interfaces and 2 that isn't interfaced. Take 1 interface strap connector and 1 that isn't interfaced. Pop them right sides together and pin or clip down the 2 angle edges. Repeat this for the last 2 pieces. Then take them over to your sewing machine and sew together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You only need to sew down the 2 angle edges. Leave the long straight edge unsewn. Do this for both strap connectors. Now they're sewn, you need to cut into the corner of the seam allowance and trim back the seam allowance back by half. Turn it right side facing out and then press with your iron. Repeat this for the other strap connector. Now they're both pressed, top stitch 1/8 inch away from the 2 angle edges on both connectors. Taking 1 piece of the webbing, cut a piece of wonder stroke quilter's tape and stick it to one short end of the webbing. Fold over the webbing by 1/2 inch, then place another piece of tape onto that folded section. You need to grab one of the strap connectors and stick this onto the strap connector using step 4 in making the webbing connector section within the pattern measurements. Sew the webbing onto the connector using a square box method with a cross going through it. Now repeat the how to attach the webbing to the other strap connector, but this time so it's reverse, so it will lay the opposite way to the other one. Moving on to making the outer back panel. So this foam or fleece step is optional or depending if your machine will take the most bulkiest area. If you're deciding not to add the foam or fleece within the cushion, you shall still need to fold over the two long edges into the wrong side and press the fabric. If you're using the pad, follow the next few steps. On the wrong side of a shoulder strap cushion, run Wonder tape or quilter's tape along the centre, peel off the backing and stick the foam into place. If you're using fusible fleece, ignore the tape bit and press the fleece with your iron and using the manufacturer's instructions. Trim off any excess that is on the two short ends. Run more quilter's tape along the top and bottom on the wrong side of the cushion. Peel off the backing and stick the folded bits into place, making sure you stick the folded edges to the wrong side of the cushion. Now pop this to one side. So, next you need to follow step 3 in making the outer back body. Step 3 has the measurements for what you need to mark on the back panel. Draw those measurements on as you see me doing this in the video, using each measurement within this step. I use a chalk pencil to make my marks. Once you've made your marks, pop this to one side for a little while. Take the flap and find the centre top raw edge and mark. Now taking the two shoulder straps, pop them either side of that centre mark and make sure the straps and flap are right sides together. Pin or clip them into place and then base stitch the straps into place within the seam allowance on the raw edge of the flap. Taking the flap with the attached straps and the main outer back panel, pop the flap onto the body back panel, lining up the flap's raw end to the second drawn line, horizontal line. Match up the centre drawn line to the centre mark onto the flap. Holding it in place, take it to your sewing machine and sew within the seam allowance on the flap, so you're attaching the flap to the back panel. Taking the neatly folded over cushion with or without the padding, pop tape onto the wrong side, peel off the backing tape and now stick it into place as stated in step 6 within the section making the outer back body within the instructions. Sew on both long edges 1/8 of an inch away. Then sew a second row of stitches at 1/4 of an inch away from both edges. This is the most bulkiest part over with. Yay, go you! But hang on, we still have a few more steps within this section before we can move on to the next section. You need to attach the strap webbing connectors to the bottom of the back outer panel. Using the measurements in step 9, pop the strap connectors either side of the back panel. Pin them into place and sew them onto the back panel within the seam allowance. Taking one short end of the webbing, the ones nearest to the strap buckle, feed the webbing through the back of the buckle over the centre bar, then feed it back through the last bottom gap. Roll the webbing stated in step 11 and sew into place. Do this for the other strap and webbing strap. You're now finished this part. Yay, go you! So the next section is making the outer zip and bag gusset.